In this video, we will be using labeling pane to manually assign marker labels in Motive. This take contains some reconstructed 3D data of an actor doing some jumping jacks. By looking at the percent completeness values in the labeling pane, or the label continuities in the tracks view, we can see that there's some gaps in the labels. Let's play the take and examine the skeleton tracking. To help identify errors, hide the skeleton model and just have the marker sticks on. Looking at the marker sticks, we can see that some of the markers are getting unlabeled. Also, there are erratic changes in the sticks, indicating mislabels like marker swaps. So let's use the quick labeling mode to reassign these labels. You can enable quick label mode from the labeling pane or by pressing D. In quick label mode, the mouse cursor changes to a finger icon and the current selected label gets displayed next to it. Using this mode, you can label markers simply by clicking on them. Here, I incorrectly assign our heel label to one of the head markers. Just as a side note, if you want to, you can turn label visibility on or off. Another useful tip is that you can scrub the timeline by holding Alt, left-clicking, and dragging the mouse left and right. This was a short overview of the quick label mode. Let's undo the labeling with Ctrl-Z. Before labeling the markers, we need to first set the labeling range. In the labeling pane, there are two range types you can select from, selected/all and fragment/spike. By default, the fragment and spike setting is used. This setting labels trajectory ranges that are bounded by gaps and spikes, which is typical behavior of mislabeling errors. The select/all setting assigns labels either to an entire trajectory or to specific frame ranges selected from the timeline. Choose the option that works best with the trajectories in the take. For this video, we'll be using the default fragment and spike setting. Next step is to determine whether you want to apply labels to the current frame forward, current frame backward, or both. Depending on how these settings are configured, labels will be applied to different frame ranges. Now let's correct some of the labels in this take. We'll start with the head top marker. Select the label under the labeling pane and move the timeline cursor over to where the gap begins. Switch to quick label mode and slowly scrub the timeline into the gap. Here you can see that the marker is unlabeled. Click on the marker to assign the label. Then repeat the same process for the remaining gaps. If you don't see any reconstructed markers in the gap, it means the marker has been completely occluded from the scene, and you'll need to use the edit tools to fill it in. We're going to use the same process for the R handout marker. If scrubbing to a trajectory gap every time is tedious, you can press A and Shift A to quickly navigate the timeline from gap to gap. We're going to repeat the same process for the R heel marker. You can double click on a label to quickly zoom into the marker and assign the label. Now that all of the unlabeled markers have been labeled, play the timeline to check the tracking one more time. Here, it looks like there are mislabeling errors on the left wrist markers. Looking at the changes of the sticks, it seems like the labels are getting swapped. Let's take a closer look into one of the wrist markers. Here we can see spikes in the trajectory. In this case, the fragment and spike setting automatically identifies the swap range and applies the label. Go ahead and reassign the label. You can see now that the other marker is unlabeled. Make sure that you label this marker as well. Now the wrist is tracking well. Examine the skeleton tracking one more time and correct any other remaining mislabel errors. Here's another set of labeling spikes. Reassign these labels as well. Now that all of the labeling errors have been corrected, the skeleton tracks much more smoothly. We have demonstrated in this example that manually labeling can significantly improve tracking quality of a recorded capture. Please check out the other labeling examples as well.